called Willing.
"His name is Will,"
rumbled Bob Leyland as he climbed from his pickup truck. Bob's deep voice fit his swarthy features and stocky figure exactly. Joel watched in fascination as Bob went around to the back of his horse trailer and opened the door. "What a name for a horse," Joel whispered to Elam. Leyland led the horse outside for everyone to see. Besides the Stutzmans, it seemed the whole Yoder clan had gathered to see the new horse. Joel drew in his breath sharply. Will was certainly different from Lady. He was bigger, for one thing, not taller, but wider, and his hide was such a dark brown it seemed black. Then there was the way he held his head. As a matter of fact, Will didn't seem to hold his head at all. He just let it droop. Joel glanced at Mom's face. She did not appear too impressed. Harvey, Paul, Joe, Vernon, and Dan were walking around the horse, inspecting him from every angle. Bob Leyland stood with one hand in his pocket and one on Will's halter.
"He's quiet,"
Bob declared.
"You couldn't find a quieter horse for a lady to drive."
"Well, that's good," said Harvey, glancing at Mom. Mom nodded without enthusiasm. Joel smiled. Lady could be quite spirited on the road, and he knew Mom liked it that way.
"I'm willing to let Will board here for several months,"
Bob went on. Then he smiled broadly.
"That reminds me about Will's full name. It's actually—"
He dug in his pocket and produced a piece of paper. From it he read importantly,
"Lansdowne Willing Jaybird II."
The Yoder boys roared with laughter. Elam nudged Joel and hissed, "What a name for a horse, indeed! A horse called Willing!" Joel knew what the nudge was about. When the laughter died down, Leyland suggested,
"Why not take him for a drive?"
With so many helpers, Will was hitched up in a twinkling. First Harvey and the boys piled on the buggy and drove out the lane. When they returned, Harvey turned to Mom. "Now you and your boys try him." Elam and Joel climbed into the buggy with Mom. Joel half expected one of the men to go along for safety's sake. After all, this was a strange horse. But no one came. Joel could see Elam was pleased. Mom had the reins. Will was in no hurry at all. Out the lane he walked. Plod, plod, plod. Once on the road, Mom urged him to go faster. He jerked up his head. Just lifting his head seemed to take special effort for Will. "He looks tired," remarked Joel. Elam disagreed. "He's well-fed and healthy. If you ask me, he's simply unwilling." He chuckled. "Unwilling Will, get up and go!" Once started, Will trotted quite decently, but only for a short distance. As soon as he dared, he dropped back to a walk. "We'd have to allow more time to get to places if we kept him," Mom said. "Will we keep him?" asked Elam. "I don't know. It may well be the best we can expect for a loaner. Leyland wouldn't want to loan us his best horses anyway." Elam nodded. He could see that Mom was right. "Maybe Joel could teach Will to be more willing, too," he suggested with a sly glance at his brother. Joel gave him a playful shove. "Now, boys," Mom said. She turned Will around and headed back to the waiting group of men. "What do you think?" Harvey asked as Mom climbed from the buggy. "He seems to be very quiet," Mom replied.
"He is," Leyland assured her. "Will has no surprises for you. Board him and he's yours to use, free of charge, for a couple of months."
"That's very reasonable," said Harvey. Mom nodded. "We'll take him, and thank you very much." The Yoder boys unhitched Will and led him to the barn. Joel trailed after them. He wanted to see what Lady thought of the new horse. Lady was lying down in her stall, but scrambled to her feet when Paul led Will into the stall next to hers. She put her nose across the partition and gave a questioning little whinny. Will whinnied back in a friendly way. "They'll get along," Joe said reassuringly. Then he smiled. "With a name like his, your new horse should be a willing worker when it comes to cultivating the garden." "I wonder," said Elam. "He certainly didn't seem very willing on the road." "When do you expect to be cultivating again?" Joe wanted to know. Elam thought for a moment. "Tomorrow, I think." "Well, I could come over and help you get started," Joe offered, "just in case Will makes any trouble. He may never have pulled a cultivator before." "Oh, I think—" Elam paused. Then he said, "All right, thanks. Starting in the morning? See you then." Joe left the barn and headed for home, following his brothers across the fields. "I really don't think he needs to come," Elam said to Joel. Joel said nothing, but he was glad Joe was coming. With a new horse, there was no knowing what might happen in the garden. But the next morning, Will was quite docile as Joe helped Elam hitch him to the cultivator. With Joe leading him, Will plodded up and down several rows. Joel compared the lazy way Will lifted his feet to Lady's eager steps. Either Will was tired, Joel thought, or else he was unwilling. Then suddenly Will stopped. One moment he was moving, and the next he wasn't. There he stood, halfway down a row, head down, feet rooted to the ground. He did not seem to hear Elam calling, "Get up!" He did not seem to feel Joe tugging at his bridle. He had simply stopped. Elam took out a handkerchief and wiped the sweat from his face. "You need some of Mom's remedy for tiredness, I think," he said to Will. Joel felt his face grow hot. Somehow it embarrassed him to see this horse acting so unwillingly. Was that the way he looked when he was tired of working? "We'll beat him at his own game," said Joe. He sat down on the ground near Will. Elam did the same. Will turned his head and looked at them. After a while, Joe said, "He'll get tired of standing there. Pretty soon he'll start off. Then we must be ready to go, too." But Joe was wrong. Will did not start off. It was the boys who got tired of waiting. Soon Elam was back at the handles of the cultivator, and Joe had hold of Will's bridle. "Okay," Joe said loudly in his most grown-up voice. "Lansdowne, Willing, Jaybird II, get out of here!" But Will did not move. Joe was becoming irritated. "Bring me a stick, Joel," he commanded. Joel's heart lurched. He knew how Mom felt about beating a horse. She would never even touch Lady with a stick. What would Mom do with unwilling Will? "Can you find a stick?" Joe repeated impatiently. Joel looked around half-heartedly. Then he spied Mom coming down the road toward them. Had she heard Joe? If she had, she gave no sign. All she said was, "Here, try this." And she held a carrot just out of reach of Will's nose. Will's drooping eyes opened wide. He stretched out his nose. Mom kept the carrot out of reach. Will took a step forward, then another, and another. "You take the carrot," Mom said to Joe. Joe smiled sheepishly and took the carrot. "Well, well," he said as Will continued plodding obediently down the row. "So it takes a carrot to make you live up to your name." Chapter 7. Visitors. One warm day followed another. Mom kept saying the weather was unusually warm for June, but every now and then a little shower kept the soil in the garden from drying up. The warm weather was just right for Pat the pig. He didn't need to spend his nights in the kitchen any more. Elam and Joel built a little pen for him in the woodshed. They had considered returning him to the barn, but he still needed to be fed so often that it was more convenient to have him nearby. "I'm glad we don't have to bottle feed him any more," Joel said one morning as Elam and he stood watching the pig slurp milk from his trough. "Why? I thought you said it was fun." Joel shrugged. "It was fun, maybe, but I got tired of it." "You're always getting tired of things," Elam accused. "Not any more than you," Joel answered hotly. A bright little girl voice chirped behind them. "Hi there!" Joel whirled. There stood the 4 youngest Yoders, except for the baby. Dorcas and Ruth each held onto a little brother's hand. Amos was 5 and Adam was 3. Joel couldn't think of anything to say. His face burned. The newcomers had probably heard him and Elam quarreling. Dorcas held out a folded piece of paper. "We brought a note for your Mom. Lizzie couldn't come. She's busy helping Mom get ready for company." "Company?" asked Joel curiously. "On a Saturday?" "Out-of-state visitors from Ohio," Dorcas announced importantly. "They're coming for dinner today, and you're invited, too." "We? Why?" asked Elam in surprise. "Yes, that's what this letter is about. Where's your Mom?" questioned Dorcas. "Inside. Come on." Joel led the way to the kitchen. Mom smiled as she greeted their little visitors. Then she opened the letter, and everybody was quiet as she read it. Soon Mom looked up at the boys. "Ready to go away for dinner? To Harvey's?" "Why are we invited?" Elam wondered. "Is the company somebody we know?" "Yes. Well, no. Most of the folks are strangers, except for the one woman, Wilma Detweiler. I went to school with her." She smiled at Dorcas and Ruth. "I guess your Mom knew that." "The Detweilers are Mom's cousins," Dorcas explained. Mom nodded. "There will be 3 Detweiler families in the van, I understand." Dorcas nodded back. She obviously felt quite grown-up having this discussion with Joel's mom. 3 brothers, all my Mom's cousins." She paused. "Can you come for dinner, then?" "Yes, thank you for inviting us." "Then we must hurry home. Come, Adam. Amos, where are you?" "The boys and Joel went out to the pig again," Elam mumbled. He watched through the open doorway as Dorcas gathered up the younger children and herded them out the lane. "She's like a mother hen with chicks," he remarked to Mom. "Who is?" Mom asked absently. "Dorcas," Elam replied. "See, there she goes with her brood." "Oh, I see," Mom said. Her mind seemed somewhere else. Then her voice grew businesslike. "Where's Joel? You boys should get washed up and put on clean clothes." "Do we have to go?" Elam wanted to know. Mom looked at him in surprise. "I mean," he said hastily, "it's just a bunch of strange grown-ups." "Not just grown-ups," Mom interrupted. "There are at least 2 boys along, and some girls. You could all play a game together after dinner." "Boys my age?" Elam asked, his voice brightening. "I think so. Now please find Joel and go wash up." The hot sun was almost directly overhead as the 3 Stutzmans walked over to Harvey's. Sweat formed under Joel's hatband and ran down his face. "Must be 90 degrees, he remarked. Elam didn't hear him. He was staring in fascination at all the strangers on the Yoder's porch and front lawn. Men, women, boys, and girls seemed to be everywhere. But Elsie Yoder managed to squeeze everybody around her long kitchen table for the meal. Joel found himself tucked between 2 strange boys. Every now and then he stole a glance at them as he ate. The color of their hair fascinated him. He had never seen reddish-brown hair like that. "Oops," he said as his right elbow bumped the one boy. "Sorry," the boy mumbled back, his mouth full of potatoes and roast beef. "It's because I'm left-handed. Doesn't work out too well when the table's full like this." "Never mind," Joel said. He kept his elbow tucked in after that. He wondered what the boy's name was. After dinner, the schoolboys went outdoors. They sat on the grass in the shade of the maple tree and looked shyly at one another. Besides the red-haired boys, there was one other, a thin, pale boy who wore glasses. It was the pale boy who spoke first. "I'm Lester Detweiler. What are your names?" His eyes were on Elam and Joel. Joel looked at Elam, waiting for him to say something. "I'm Elam Stutzman," said Elam. Joel had hoped he'd say, "And this is my brother Joel," but he didn't. So Joel said in a small voice, "I'm Joel." "Joel who?" demanded the smaller of the red-haired boys. Joel jerked a thumb towards Elam. "I'm his brother." The red-haired boy nodded. "I'm Alan Detweiler. This is my brother Aaron." He nudged the bigger red-haired boy, who smiled amiably. Joel wondered why the younger boy had spoken first. "We're first cousins, Aaron and Alan and I," Lester explained. "Where do you live?" asked Alan loudly. "Right over there in that house," Elam said, pointing across the field. Lester had a bright idea. "Maybe we could go see your place while the grown-ups sit and visit." "If you like," Elam said politely. "Oh, it's too warm to walk around much," Alan protested. Suddenly Joel remembered the cave. It would be cool there. He also remembered that he wanted to see how many boys could get into it. Forgetting his shyness, he said eagerly, "We could go to our cave. It's nice and cool in there." Alan looked at him with new interest. "Your cave? Where is it?" Lester was already unfolding his long legs to get up. "I'll go in and ask my mom or dad whether we can go." Within minutes he was back, wearing a smile. "They said to be back in an hour." Joel and the others scrambled to their feet as well, and ignoring the hot sun, they trotted across the field. Chapter 8. Sold for Pet Food. "Let's go to the house first," Elam suggested, leading the way. "Do you want to see our pet pig?" Joel asked. "A pet pig!" exclaimed Alan. "Who ever heard of keeping a pig for a pet?" Joel wished he had not mentioned Pat, but there was no turning back now. Sheepishly he opened the woodshed door. "There she is." "A pet pig in the house!" Alan said in disbelief. But his older brother was very interested. Aaron lingered near the pig's pen and spoke to Pat in a friendly voice. Joel decided then and there he liked Aaron better than Alan. Soon Alan called, "Come on, Aaron, we're going to the cave now." Joel was puzzled as he tramped down to the creek with the others. Wasn't Aaron the older of the two red-haired boys? He certainly was taller, but he didn't act older. In fact, he didn't seem to mind being bossed around by his younger brother. Joel was sure Elam would mind. "Here we are," Elam said, climbing down the creek bank. "Where's the cave? I don't see any cave." The demanding note was back in Alan's voice. "Come on down here," Lester told him. One by one they scrambled down and entered the cool hollow between the roots of the cedar. Alan took a look around and declared, "This isn't a very big cave." The words hurt Joel, almost as though Alan had hit him. His hands balled up into tight fists, but after a moment he unclenched them again. It would never do to hit a visitor. "It's nice and cool," Lester said pleasantly. Aaron only smiled. Everyone sat down on the hard-packed earth except Alan. He remained standing, hunching his shoulders beneath the low ceiling. "My good pants would get dirty," he said. Joel was not surprised when Alan demanded, "How long are we going to stay here?" "We can leave now, if you like," Elam replied evenly. Joel was quite irritated, but he admired Elam for keeping his voice calm. "Could we see your barn yet?" Lester asked as they emerged into the bright sunlight again. Joel wanted to say, "Let's not bother." He could imagine Alan making fun of Lady and Will and Porker. He wasn't sure he could bear it. But Elam said, "Sure," and they all trooped up to the barn. Soon they stood in front of the horses' stalls. "What are their names?" demanded Alan. "I won't tell him," Joel thought. But Elam answered politely, "This one is Lady. She's lame, so we borrowed that one for a while. He's called Will." Aaron had been staring at the dark horse. Now he exclaimed, "Will?" His voice was high, almost squeaky. Aaron stepped closer to the stall. Eagerly he reached out and touched the horse's nose. "Will? Do you mean Lansdowne Willing Jaybird II?" Joel was dumbfounded. "How did you know?" We had him for 6 years." Aaron was so excited his voice squeaked even more. "He was Mom's horse. She drove him a lot. She liked him." Aaron paused, his voice strangely sad. "I liked him too." "I didn't," Alan hooted. "Will was as slow as molasses in January. I thought he went for pet food when we sent him away." Aaron shook his head happily as he patted Will's nose again and again. "But he didn't! He didn't go for pet food! He came here!" His voice was full of wonder. Elam was amazed. "Isn't that a coincidence? You boys came here almost by accident, and here is your old horse." Alan seemed embarrassed by the fuss his brother was making over Will. He turned and looked at the empty stalls near Lady. "Where are your work horses? Out in the pasture?" Joel squirmed. Why did Alan have to ask that? Now he would find out. Oh, he would find out many things Joel felt Alan Detweiler need not know. Elam was still polite. "We haven't any work horses. Harvey Yoder's farm our place." Alan's eyebrows shot up. "Why?" "Oh," said Elam quietly, "maybe you haven't heard. Our father died when we were little." Joel didn't see how Elam could say it so quietly and matter-of-factly. For once, Alan didn't know what to say. He just stood there, looking first at Elam and then at Joel. His face had turned white. It was Aaron who stammered, You don't have a father? And we don't have a mother. She died 2 years ago." If Elam's words had been like a bombshell dropped in their midst, Aaron's were even more so. Joel could feel his anger toward Alan draining away. In its place came a feeling of sympathy. No mother? He couldn't imagine how that would be. Somehow it hadn't occurred to him that a mother could die, too. Mothers were just always there. At least his mother was. The silence in the barn had grown strained. Nobody knew what to say. Then Will gave a short whinny, and Aaron turned to pet him again. Joel watched him and thought, no wonder he liked that horse. It was the horse his mother drove. He cleared his throat. "You were sorry to see Will go?" "Yes," said Aaron. "Yes." There was a catch in his voice. "Will wasn't any good," Alan spat out. He turned on his heel. "I guess it's time we get back to the Yoders. We're leaving to visit some other places before supper time." The others had to hurry to catch up with him. Joel fell into step beside Aaron. Who does the housekeeping for you?" he asked hesitantly. "Aunt Lena, and we have 2 big sisters," Aaron replied sadly. Joel wondered whether he was thinking of his dead mother, or because he was sorry to leave Will. "We won't need Will much longer, because Lady will be well soon. Then you could have Will back if you like," Joel said generously. Aaron shook his head sadly. "Dad wouldn't want him. Will was too slow. That's why he sold him for pet food." "I can't understand how Bob Leyland got a hold of Will," Joel puzzled. "Neither can I." A slow smile spread across Aaron's face. "But I'm glad he did. I'm glad Will wasn't turned into pet food." Chapter 9. The Detweiler Boys Again. There were so many things to talk about at the supper table that the boys almost forgot to eat. "Mom, did you know that Aaron and Alan don't have any mother?" asked Joel. "Yes, I knew." "Then why didn't you tell us?" "I don't know. I guess I forgot," Mom replied. "And Will was their horse once. Would you believe that?" Elam exclaimed. Mom looked up from her plate. "That's interesting. Did they like him?" "Aaron did, and his mother did too, but Alan and his dad didn't, so they sold Will for pet food." Said Mom thoughtfully. "For pet food. It makes me wonder what kind of a horse dealer Leyland is." "Maybe not too trustworthy," Elam remarked. "Trustworthy or not, he provided us with a horse," Mom pointed out, "and tomorrow we use the horse to go to church for the first time." Elam gave a little groan. "And church is way over at Chris Limebach's. That's more than 4 miles. With a horse like Will, we'll have to start off half an hour earlier than usual to get there on time." So we shall, Mom said briskly. It's still better than walking. I'm not so sure, Elam said darkly. After cultivating the garden with an unwilling horse several times, he could understand why the Detweilers had gotten rid of Will. Mom ignored his grumbling and looked at the clock. We'd better get started with our Saturday evening chores, she exclaimed. Early to bed and early to rise, and early to church. Early to start off, late to get there, Elam corrected. Mom smiled. Be that as it may, we shall do our best. As it turned out, they were ready to start off next morning a full 3/4 of an hour earlier than they ordinarily would have left for Limebox. Surprisingly enough, Will trotted along briskly. What's gotten into him? He's actually holding up his head, Elam remarked. Maybe he's still happy because he saw Aaron yesterday, suggested Joel. They seemed to be good friends. Huh, said Elam. Why not? Joel said defensively. We're good friends with Lady. This horse is different, Elam persisted. So is Aaron, Joel pointed out. He turned to Mom. Did you notice Aaron? He seems sort of quiet. Mom nodded. I talked with his Aunt Lena about Aaron. He's 13, isn't he? I think so, replied Elam. His Aunt Lena says he has the mind of a 7 or 8-year-old. He hasn't gotten much further than 3rd grade at school. Oh, said Joel in surprise. So it's like he's actually younger than I am. In some ways. In other ways, people like Aaron can be quite wise. For instance, Aaron is very good with animals. He seems to have a special way with them, Mom explained. Their conversation was interrupted when they came to a busy county road. Mom brought Will to a full stop and looked both ways to check the traffic. Then she slapped the reins on Will's back. Gidap! Joel gripped the armrest of the buggy. A car was coming over the hill. Couldn't Will move a little faster as they crossed the road? Then they were across, and Joel relaxed again. His thoughts turned back to Aaron. Learning about his handicap hadn't made Joel like him any less. I still like Aaron better than Alan. At least Aaron doesn't make fun of things, Joel thought. With Will more lively, the Stutzmans reached Chris Limebox before anyone else. Joel went with Elam as he unhitched Will and tied him in the barn. Then they wandered over to the big shed where the church benches were set up. Lots of room today, Joel remarked. It's a good thing with those visitors from Ohio here, too, Elam pointed. The big van that had brought the Detweilers to Harvey's yesterday was driving in the lane. So they're here, too, Joel said in surprise. Of course, Elam said. Why would they come all the way from Ohio and not stay over Sunday? Joel nodded. It had not occurred to him that he would ever again see Aaron and Alan. Yet there they were, red hair and all, climbing out of the van. Joel hung back. He really didn't want to meet Alan. But the Detweiler boys, along with Lester, made a beeline for Elam and Joel. Lester's eyes were friendly behind his glasses. Good to see you again. I liked your cave. It was nice and cool. Alan said nothing, but Joel thought he heard him sniff. Did you come with Will? Aaron asked, that slow grin spreading across his face again. Yes, and he hurried this morning, Joel said enthusiastically. He could when he wanted to, Aaron said. Elam chuckled. When he was willing, you mean? Aaron nodded. That's right, when he was willing. Can we go say hi to Will before church starts? Sure, come on, Joel said. He and Aaron moved away from the other three. Soon the 13-year-old was talking to Will and stroking his nose. The look in Will's eyes was unmistakably happy. And when it was time for the boys to go into the shed, Will gave a low, sorrowful nicker. Soon the shed was echoing to the slow strains of the Lobelied as the congregation sang, O Father God, we praise thee. Joel sang too. He didn't know all the church tunes, but the Lobelied he knew because it was the second song they sang at every service. He tried to pay careful attention to the minister. Mom would ask them tonight what scriptures had been read. Some Sundays he simply didn't catch on, but today he did. It was Matthew, chapter 5. Joel tried not to fidget. Sitting for hours on a backless bench was hard. By the time church was over, Joel was very hungry. Eagerly he went with the other boys to the house where lunch was laid out on long tables. He spread thick slices of homemade bread lavishly with butter and jam. Crunchy pickles and carrot slices went well with the sandwiches. For dessert there were several kinds of sweet, spicy cookies. Church lunches were never fancy meals, but to Joel they were always the best food in the world. After lunch, the schoolboys drifted together in a little group on the lawn. Usually everybody was talkative because they knew each other well. Today they were quieter, and Joel knew it was because of the Detweiler boys. But Edwin Miller, who was in Elam's grade at school, could never be quiet for long. He started talking about horses. Most of the boys joined in, telling about their work horses and their driving horses. "Have you heard what the Stutzman's new horse is called?" Alan Detweiler spoke up. "His name is Willing, but he's the most unwilling horse you ever saw. I know, because we had him for a while, too." Anger boiled up inside Joel. It wasn't that Alan's words weren't true, but his voice was so scornful, like yesterday. Afterwards, Joel couldn't understand why he did it. He didn't think about it at all. It just happened. He stepped toward Alan and swung his fist, thumping him on the arm. "Don't talk about our horse that way," he said heatedly. Alan jerked around in surprise. "Why did you do that? I was just telling the truth." Before Joel could say anything more, Elam piped up. "Never mind my little brother. He can get real heated up about nothing at all." Joel glared at Elam. Then he walked away from the group of boys, his hands stuffed into his pockets and tears streaming down his face. He felt awful. Someone followed him. It was Aaron, his face full of concern. "Shall we go talk to Will?" he asked. Joel shrugged. "I don't care." He trailed after Aaron to where Will was tied up. In a minute or two, a smile crept to Joel's lips. Who could help smiling the way that boy and that horse talked to each other? Chapter 10. The Heavenly Father. Just as Joel expected, Elam lost no time telling Mom about the incident at church. After they were in the buggy heading for home, he announced, "Joel punched Alan Detweiler today." "You hit a visitor?" Mom was shocked. Joel's face burned. "Alan kept making fun of our horse." "He wasn't really making fun of Will, just stating facts," objected Elam. "I see," said Mom quietly. "Alan made fun of our things yesterday, too. I just don't like him. He's so proud," Joel said hotly. "Oh," said Mom, "but Aaron isn't?" "No, I like him. He's nice." Joel waited for Mom to scold him. But Mom didn't scold. Instead, she was very quiet all the way home. It made Joel uncomfortable. He preferred a scolding to not knowing what Mom was thinking. That evening during devotions, Mom said, "I'll read the last part of the chapter we had today." And she began, "Ye have heard that it hath been said, Thou shalt love thy neighbor and hate thine enemy. But I say unto you, love your enemies, bless them that curse you, do good to them that hate you, and pray for them which despitefully use you and persecute you, that ye may be the children of your Father which is in heaven." When Mom looked up, she repeated softly, "Love your enemies, bless them that curse you, do good to them that hate you." Joel squirmed. "Joel," Mom said pointedly, "Alan may not have been very nice, but does that excuse you for being mean to him?" "No," mumbled Joel. Mom looked at the Bible again. "I like this line, that ye may be children of your Father which is in heaven. God really is our Father, you know. And have you thought about it? Children are like their fathers and mothers. They look like them, they act like them. If we are children of our Heavenly Father, we do as He does. We love our enemies and do good to them that hate us." Joel and Elam both nodded. For a few moments, the only sound in the kitchen was the clock ticking. Then Mom said, "Joel, not having an earthly father can make us feel that we're different from others. It can cause us to get offended too easily. We're too quick to think people are making fun of us simply because we feel so different." Joel shrugged. He had never thought about it that way, but Mom was probably right. He knew he often wished he had a daddy like other boys. "It might help you to remember," Mom went on, "that we do indeed have a Father in heaven, and He's everybody's Father. Yours, Aaron's, Alan's. He loves us all, and He wants us all to love each other." Mom waited. Joel knew she expected him to say something, so he said, "Yes, Mom." He was still wondering whether he was going to get punished for punching Alan when Mom abruptly changed the subject. "Did Aaron want to see Will again today?" "Oh, yes," exclaimed Joel. "I think he would have spent all afternoon with Will. He loves that horse." "I talked with Aaron's Aunt Lena again after church," Mom said. "She had hoped they would keep Will for Aaron's sake, but Aaron's dad saw no reason to keep a horse that wasn't much use." "Too bad Aaron had to lose his mother and his horse," Joel said sympathetically. "I know," Mom agreed. "I think maybe Aaron's dad just didn't realize how it was for Aaron." She turned and looked at the clock. "Past bedtime, boys." Joel got to his feet reluctantly. Tired though he was, he never... "Joel," said Mom. "Yes?" "In a week or two, I want you and Elam to write the Detweiler boys. You can write friendly letters with a bit of news and a thank you for their visit. And Joel, I want you to apologize for hitting Alan." Joel's heart plummeted to his shoes. He turned and walked slowly to the stairs. He did not want to write to Alan Detweiler. "Joel?" Mom's voice followed him, demanding an answer. "Yes, Mom." Strawberry picking was in full swing now. Joel and Elam were kept very busy helping Mom with their 8 long rows of berries. About half the berries went to customers who came right to the Stutzman farm. The rest were picked up by the wholesale truck that went through the area each morning on its way to the fruit and vegetable market in the big city. Elam and Joel had to get up at the crack of dawn in order to have dozens of quarts of berries ready for the truck. "I like early morning picking the best," Elam remarked to Joel one forenoon after the wholesale truck had gone and they were back in the patch picking for other customers. "Why?" asked Joel. "Because it's nice and cool then. By this time of the day the sun gets warm." "Not just warm, hot," grumbled Joel. "I feel half-baked, and my back hurts, and we still have 3 rows for today." Elam threw him an irritating grin. "Maybe it's time you had a chat with Lansdowne, Willing, Jaybird, "Oh, stop that," snapped Joel. "I'm tired of hearing about being willing." "You're tired? But I thought Mom said willing is a "I said stop it!" Joel shouted. He covered his ears with his hands. Mom's voice floated to them from 2 rows over. "Quiet, boys. Somebody's here. A customer, probably." Elam squinted at the red vehicle coming in the lane. "No, I think it's Mr. Duval's Jeep. Remember? He promised to come and check on Lady after a few weeks." Joel was on his feet in an instant. "We'd better go to the barn to find out what he has to say." Mom smiled. "It will give us all a break from berry picking." Mr. Duval was already in Lady's stall by the time they reached the barn. Carefully, the vet removed the splint and ran his hand up and down the injured leg. Lady turned her head and watched him warily. Mr. Duval straightened up to find the 3 Stutzmans watching him. "Hi," he said briefly. "The leg is doing well, so she can do without the splint. And she can go to pasture now, but not before you have filled in any groundhog burrows." "All right," Elam promised gravely. "Good," said Mr. Duval. "I'll be back to check her before you take her on the road." With that, he left the barn and hurried to his Jeep. "Mom, shall we start right away?" Joel asked eagerly. "Start what?" "Filling in the groundhog holes," Joel replied impatiently. Elam hooted. Listen to the boy who was so tired a few minutes ago. Now he wants to start lugging around a ton or two of gravel."
"Elam, don't tease," Mom warned. Turning to Joel, she added, "I'm afraid we'll have to keep at those berries today."
"But Lady wants to go out to the pasture," protested Joel.
Mom smiled. "She's quite contented here. I doubt she understood Mr. Duval when he said she may go out. Do you think so?" Grudgingly, Joel shook his head. He could hardly wait to race down the pasture with Jim and Lady once more. Will had been in the field a few times, but he didn't like running there any better than on the road. He just stood around eating grass. Joel was sure Lady longed to be outdoors, too. But the berries came first. Feet dragging, Joel followed the others to the garden.